Hey, you're listening to Worldwide Cuckoo's Nest, where I, your host, Anthony Martinez, will discuss topics revolving around cryptids, paranormal, aliens, and whatever falls into the realm of disbelief. Professionals in their field of research will also accompany me to bring a new perspective that I and you might have missed or aren't familiar with. And you, yes you, the listener, could join in at the show and discuss your experience with the abnormal, so sit down and enjoy. Hey world. Since I'm speaking to the abyss and to the abyss speaks back, I'm going to give you several reports across the paranormal spectrum. The first will be Ignacio and his encounter with the Greys. In 1979 Mexico, Ignacio was just 9 years old, playing in his stable with his toys, when he noticed the horses were becoming anxious. He thought they were restless, wanting to leave their stall until they began kicking the walls in. Now he became scared. With his hands over his ears and eyes shut tight, Ignacio tried to block out the commotion. When he said he heard a voice in his head, "Don't worry, we will settle them down." And like that, everything went silent. He opens his eyes and removes his hand from his ears, and the first thing he sees from the other side of the stable is a tiny figure poking around the entrance. Ignacio explained he felt this tunnel of communication shooting across space, and this tiny childlike figure told Ignacio to follow him. Running out to the farm, he witnessed this silver saucer out in the fields with three figures waving at him. Ignacio speedwalking to this mysterious silver plate, and childlike figure said that's when he felt like he was floating. That even though his feet were on the ground, they were weightless. And before he knew it, he witnessed a door opening to a blinding light. With his arms over his face blocking the brilliance, the next thing he witnessed was his mother's arms wrapped around him, crying as his dad was yelling at him. It was dark and Ignacio was deep in the forest. He said these encounters didn't stop but carried on through his younger years until he became older. That's when he said their visits weren't as often. Ignacio said he doesn't remember much of his encounters other than their appearance. And when asked about regression therapy to unlock those memories, he said no, because he was afraid it would unravel a dark past he erased from his mind. Ignacio said his childhood wasn't a happy one, as his father was an abusive person, and the things he remembers as a child from his actions were already horrific enough. He didn't want to retread those memories, even if the therapist could avoid them. Ignacio, 55, still lives in Mexico. I guess if it were me and I had an abusive parent, I wouldn't want to run the risk of experiencing that over again. But it's your typical abduction experience. Small gray little men with their spaceship and missing time. Obviously, as we continue with this, I'm going to go over reports that are similar, but there are some that are vastly different. I wanted to warm the palate before we go into the deeper stuff. Our next report is Bigfoot. I know this cryptid doesn't have much fanfare, but this case is pretty interesting, if true. Mike and several of his friends went camping. They weren't experts, but they've been around the block. They were finishing up day 2 by the campfire, talking, having laughs. They were enjoying their stay in the wilderness until they heard an unfamiliar sound. They were sure it wasn't a bear or coyote since it sounded guttural. Then a howl. This went on for a couple of minutes before it stopped. They waited for several hours before resigning into their tents. The next morning, the moment they had the night before washed away in their heads, and it would not have deterred them from enjoying the rest of their trip. Mike, separated from the group as they were trekking to the river, he needed to relieve himself. He went further into the woods than he should have. After finding a spot, he did his business, and as he was done, he heard the same guttural sound he heard the night before, and he froze in place. Looking at his surroundings, he lowered himself toward the ground so he wasn't as visible. Slowly backing away, still searching within the trees and shrubs, the guttural howl paralyzes him again, but it was a lot closer than it was before. His glare intensifies, trying to find where the howl came from, when he sees at the corner of his eye a shrub rattle. Mike said not even his eyes moved after that. Now it was a game of chicken. He said he wasn't sure if it's what he saw, but when a hairy figure sprang from out the shrub, he immediately bolted from the area, screaming for his friend's help. Mike looked back and caught a glimpse of the creature running after him, and it was on 2 legs. He wouldn't say it was Bigfoot, but wouldn't say it was a bear either. After running for his life and this creature was no longer chasing him, he told his group of friends he was leaving with or without them, explaining what he had experienced. Ever since then, Mike and his friends never went back camping. Now, I don't know about you guys, but I'm not a camping guy. So you wouldn't find me in the woods at any point in my life unless it's where the aliens drop me off. But bears, cougars, boars, foxes, and coyotes, that is enough to make that a promise I keep. And now you're telling me Bigfoot's looking? Those same woods? Nah, I'm okay. Now this is our last paranormal encounter. Brooke, an aspiring ghost hunter, was with a group of friends when they decided to investigate an abandoned asylum. They said before they entered the building, everything was charged up. While saying it, you know where this is going if you're familiar with the paranormal. The first hours were your typical creaks and rumblings, nothing too serious, but if you are not aware, 3 a.m. is when the real magic happens. As they were exploring the hallways, Brooke said one of her friends noticed their camera shut off, which seemed to cause a chain reaction. Everybody's electronic devices was dead. That's when, at the end of the hallway, they saw a dark figure run across from one room to another. She said everybody stood in place, not sure if what they saw was a homeless person or something more evil. Her male friend started to call the person to reveal themselves as they stood in place, and that's when a loud bang just shook them to their core, and one of their friends ran away. The bangs came louder and they stopped. Brooke and her friends were too afraid to move when they heard a faint growl become louder and a dark figure appear from outside a room, but on its hands and legs like a dog, and they ran, leaving the asylum by jumping into the car and driving off. She did mention a lot of homeless people stayed there and other people who do unsavory things. So she said it could be some drug fiend or a homeless person, but she thinks what she saw was a demon. I don't know about you guys, but that sent shivers down my spine. I'm going to sleep with the lights on tonight. Well, that's the end of those reports and this podcast. I really want to get your input if you think these are real reports or just delusions of fear. Either way, it's been a joy, and I hope you come back to listen to more Worldwide Cuckoo's Nest.